With this story you're telling of the Holy Game, did you find or did you notice anybody that was the next Beckham or had that aura of them?
So we followed the North American soccer team, which was a big mistake because North Americans aren't good at soccer. Like halfway through, we're like, and we gravitated towards them because over there's a lot of languages that get spoken. Like there's priests from all over the world, from like Africa comes over and Portugal and everything. They play on these teams. It's a lot like Quidditch, like Harry Potter, where they're like the schools play each other. There was the North American team. We like realized halfway through, like these guys aren't going to make the finals. We're not going to have a great film if they don't make the finals. They didn't even make it past the semifinals. They got to the quarterfinals, and we sort of picked 6 other teams. We're like, let's follow these guys too because they've made the finals the last 6 to 8 years of this cup. And they're really good at soccer. And I don't know if they actually made it to the World Cup, went far in the World Championship.
Welcome to Amigospc. If you were looking for a podcast with high standards and an appreciation for the finer things in life, like water polo, ballet, equestrian riding, cricket, and trips to the countryside, you're in the wrong place. If you're looking for a podcast that celebrates drinking, random thoughts, wacky conspiracies, memes, crypto, cinema, and a lot of other things that don't really make any sense, then you're in the right place. This is Amigospc, and here are your hosts, Scott and Mark.
The Amigos back at it again. Today we have IDA-nominated and Leo Award-winning director Brent Hodge with us. He did documentaries like I Am Chris Farley. He has his recent one, which we're going to talk about today, The Holy Game. If you could, Brent, just give us a little insight of your background.
Sure. I'm a Canadian, so I'm really nice. You start there. I started filmmaking at the CBC up in Canada, like 10, 15 years ago, and then got really into pop culture documentaries and just like finding comedy in real life, like weird, bizarre things and going for it. And we've just made, a number of films that are in that realm, and we've really stuck to it. We're kind of like, say I want to be like the Judd Apatow of comedy docs, we're like hitting a world.
Yeah.
And as documentaries have grown, there's so many categories of it. There's like nature docs and science docs and sports docs. And I'm like, no one's doing comedy. And you've been on this great journey as it's really expanded. And you've seen people bring out comedy docs. So it's really like my MO in the film industry at the moment.
I was watching some of your interviews and listening to some of them. And one thing I noticed, one of your interviewers, this had to be maybe over a decade ago, you used to work for a radio station. And
yeah.
then
So
you got
the
into...
CBC. Yeah. And so the CBC in Canada is like, it's like the BBC. And it has radio stations, TV stations. It's like our public broadcasting corporation. And I worked for Radio 3, which was like alternative radio, but I didn't necessarily work on the radio part of things. I did R3 TV, the YouTube page. And so we did like 200 plus episodes of this very cool, odd show called R3 TV, which was bands and, funny subjects and really sort of like on the fly kind of documentary work. And that's really where I cut my teeth. Just I think 2 to 12 minute kind of episodes, but we just did so many of them, and that was right when YouTube started, which makes me feel very old. But it was like an odd sort of time where nobody knew what this world was. There were some YouTube stars coming, and then places like CBC were like, "What do we do in this world?" And we were just doing some of the funnest stuff. Yeah,
that's awesome. Did you end up going to school for was this always your passion, or did you just kind of fall into it because you were like working at the radio? And like maybe just got that kind of intro,
I never went to
intern gig to like try to run with that.
I mean, it's funny. Chris Kelly, he co-directed this new film that we just put out called The Holy Game this week. We met at CBC. We met just before CBC, and he got me my first job. And so this has been like a full circle of us now working together on a movie. But honestly, I never went to film school. I never did any film classes or anything. I wouldn't even say I was like a huge film buff as a kid. I enjoyed films. I enjoyed the idea of it, and I loved the creation of it. But it wasn't. I went to business school, and it was like the business of Hollywood. Most filmmakers absolutely hate it, like the idea that you have to sell your movies, and it's this grind. And I like really see an art in it and love it. I love selling movies. I love pitching. I love coming up with an idea, the fruition of an idea to the end product. And with documentaries, it's like a really easy. The barrier to entry is quite easy. You know, like if you have a documentary idea, you could actually grab your phone and just start, and like we will all watch it. It's crazy. It's probably the same as like the podcast world to a Howard Stern, where you're like, there's such a jump. There used to be such a jump where you're like, I have to be sponsored, I have to be on a major broadcaster. There's only a few radio stations in each city, and now the landscape's completely changed. You're like, I got a computer, and if you got the internet, you can tune in. And it's kind of the same with docs. You start seeing YouTube channels, you start seeing broadcasters starting to play a lot of these docs. And that, like the evolution of it happened as I started to just really want to sell movies. If docs didn't go and get bigger and move in a certain direction, I bet I would get into like international sales. I would probably be hunting for movies I like and trying to sell them in Canada. Like I like sales, and a lot of people disagree with me in the film industry. They're like, "Wow, how do you like that? That sucks." And I'm like,
they're probably thinking that's like the worst part of it.
The worst part, but I just see that there's an art in it. I really see that. I think it's extremely honest. It's a really strange thing, but like you can't sell an idea to somebody unless you're being real. It's not car salesman stuff here. This is like you have the idea that you want to execute, a story you want to tell, and you have to try to convince people that they should watch it and buy it. And I just find there's something so challenging and beautiful to it. It's weird. So that got me into it. And
awesome.
It's almost like, sales is like a people person, occupation, right? And if you're not true to yourself and actually love it, you come off as that used car salesman type guy. And that almost kind of relates to how you did the documentary with I Am Chris Farley, like, because you portray, I mean, Chris, from, an audience perspective, a fan's perspective, he comes off very genuine, and it without saying it, you really made that vocal point in that type of documentary. So it kind of just, what I'm saying is it correlates together, and it's making a lot of sense, you talking about it now.
I really appreciate that, Mark. I think it's like, that's a huge compliment, because for me, it was also, how has nobody done a film on Chris Farley? Like, the audience deserves to know about this guy. And there's actually like a channel and an avenue and a way that I could probably make this happen. And it's a pipe dream, and I'm super young. It was only my second movie, was Farley. And I was 25 years, 26 maybe, just turned 26 when I started that movie. It took us a long time to film it. And I just couldn't believe there wasn't a movie about Chris Farley. And I always say, like, like he's my Muhammad Ali in a lot of ways. Like, I think a lot of filmmakers would say, I want to do a documentary on Muhammad Ali or Lawrence of Arabia, or like something so big, Vietnam War. And I'm like, that's Farley to me. Like, Farley, so funny. He changed my life when it came to comedy. And I gravitated towards, like, I don't know if his story had the sort of, there was no just to it. It wasn't like, people didn't really know. They're like, oh yeah, he died from a heart attack, or he was like the big guy. And you're like, oh my God, no, what? No, Farley's like got the #1 sketch on SNL. And it was actually a Rolling Stone article where the Matt Foley character is still the #1 sketch of all time on SNL, according to Rolling Stone. And I was like, this guy deserves something. And so we got it.
I mean, he's a motivational speaker.
Yeah, he's a motivational speaker.
I mean, come on.
And he's a salesman.
Yeah.
But there's there was something there. But I ultimately also think that sell just hadn't been in front of a broadcaster. Like, no one had ever thought, we need a demographic of 30-year-olds who, it was like, it's all there with that film. I just don't think anyone presented it properly. Like, nobody presented him as a legend ever, right? They presented him as,
and you definitely did that as well.
As a guy who
delivered,
kind of died, and we shouldn't talk about it because it's tough. And When we met the Farleys, we went to Wisconsin and met the Farleys, and we just knew immediately that there was like still they wanted to tell the story. They really wanted to make sure that Chris's story was like embedded in pop culture properly, and I think we did it. Like I watched that movie, and I think about that movie now in retrospect, like many years later, and I'm like, we did it with that movie. We truly did the Chris Farley movie. There's not going to be another one, and we got all the right people, and they told the right story. And in history, like Chris's name is where it should be. That's what I think.
Yeah,
agreed.
No, I agree. Yeah, no, it was such a great
definitely
documentary.
Definitely a home run for sure.
I wouldn't say that about all my films, but but I think that one.
Well, you're being humble.
That's it,
you're being humble now.
I'm just so proud of that film. Like that film, first, I mean, absolutely put us on the map in terms of comedy docs. But like, if I could meet one person in the whole world, it would be Chris Farley. And I still talk about him. I still post about his birthday. It's like I still get emotional talking. I didn't even know this guy. Like I never met him. I just think about him, and I know Kevin Farley really well, and we talk, and they feel so similar and look so similar. It's like I just never. I got so close to that movie, and I'm so proud of it. So it's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I was saying off air before we came on, I'm originally from Wisconsin, and just the connection is a little different, especially now having you on and actually get to talk to somebody that created a documentary about someone who I kind of idolized, growing up. Just because of how hilarious he was. He's from my area, kind of just giving inspiration that you can be much more than what you are, if you put the effort in.
Absolutely. I also think, like, for me being from Canada, like Wisconsin's really similar. And the journey, right? Like the journey for me at that moment in my life was going to LA a lot, going to New York a lot. It was filmmaking. And it was beautiful and great, but there was a very much like missed element to being in Canada and the people of Canada. And when I went to Wisconsin, we started filming this and went to Chicago. I was like, I need that to come out in this movie because there's something special here. He's not Hollywood, this guy at all. The reason why you love Chris Farley is because he played characters and he embodied characters that were in your everyday life if you grew up in the Midwest and grew up in Canada. He's like a car salesman in every film, or he's a tire store owner, or he's like every movie, he's like an everyday man, and it works. And so like I needed to get that like done properly and well. So we spent a lot of time in Wisconsin. I loved it.
That's awesome. What was it like being around some of those, obviously big names, that were in the documentary, not to keep touching on that Chris Farley one, but as far as like, you had like, Adam Sandler, you had David, like Bob Saget, you had all those people involved. Was that like intimidating a little bit being around, or like how, because you were young at the time, like how do you handle that? I guess you can say.
No, it's tough too. I'm trying to think, I think I remember some of them really scaring me. Like Mike Myers interview, he's from Canada. I really grew up on Mike Myers. So I remember that one I remember fully having a moment where I was like, I can't believe I'm interviewing Mike Myers. While I was interviewing him, I was like, I need to stop having this moment. Yeah. I need to like focus and be here with him. Yeah. And I would hyper focus for these interviews. I'd say they've gotten a lot easier now. We interview celebrities all the time. It's like we were just with Woody Harrelson. It's like all good. It's easy, and these things. We just interviewed David Letterman a couple weeks ago, and all good, easy, no problem. Yeah, super nice guy. Back then, I think I went through the steps a little differently, but I did have some good training when I worked on R3TV and at CBC Radio 3. We would have every big Canadian band come in. And that might not mean everything to people around the world, but if you have like Arcade Fire come in or Sloan or some of these big bands that you idolize, it's a good step. Where like, it started with like the Vancouver mayor, and you're like, oh, he's here, like that's okay, we got this, and
that's pretty big.
And that's cool, that was great. And then you sort of realize that you're interviewing Vampire Weekend, and you're like, that's a big band. This is a big deal. Interpol was there, and like these people at that time, which were huge bands. And then when you move to like a Bob Saget or someone, you're like, okay, it's there's sort of like a level to it. Tom Arnold really put us at ease he's a huge friend of
Mm.
Farley's and really went there with stuff.
Yeah.
I had a lot of pressure of making sure we tell the right story. There's a story of a legend that was on SNL. There's a story of addiction. There's a family story. There's a story that people probably don't want to tell, some of the darker stuff.
Yeah.
So I think some of them gave me a different pressure. But yeah, when you sat down with Sandler or Lorne Michaels or David Spade, the nerves come. Those are really important people in Farley's story. You kind of can't get the Sandler and Spade interview wrong. You kind of have to nail it. So it was good. I mean, it was my first go at that. And since then, we've done so many, so it just feels like second nature now when it comes to sort of wrangling and doing celebrity interviews. But yeah, at the time, I do remember shitting my pants a few times.
Yeah, I imagine.
Mike Myers for sure. Like Mike Myers for me, and it was only because of me. I remember the crew just being like, "Okay, whatever." And for me, it was like, Mike Myers also only had 20 minutes when he sat down, and I had so much I wanted to go over with him because he's actually in a lot of sketches with Chris Farley. When he sat down, though, he was like, "I actually have like an hour if you want," and it was just so great. It was like the best ever. And so, they went well. They went really well on that film. Not every film has gone well with every celebrity interview, but that doc.
Ooh, you got to tell us more about that.
Yeah, I tried to tell you if there's any bad ones. I'm trying to think.
Those are the good ones. Those are the behind the scenes that everyone wants to hear about. You know what I mean? Like the ones that that don't make the film or don't make the cut. That you're like, oh, or maybe don't even you don't have to say names. Just be like,
you know
this
what,
one
what they
like,
are. You know when they are a disaster. I'll tell you because we've done like the Freaks and Geeks film was incredible. We had the cast in that is nuts from Seth Rogen to Judd Apatow to everybody. And now we're doing this new one on Jim Downey. And I don't know if you guys know him. He's a writer on SNL. And this guy wrote for everyone he was there from year 2 to year 40. We're going through the process of this film about Jim Downey. And it is, the people we're talking to are just next level. It's crazy. I mean, we haven't got all these interviews locked yet, but the people he wrote for are like everyone from Bill Murray to Fred Armisen to Bill Hader. Like that. That's how many people he's influenced. He wrote Chippendales. He wrote Chippendales. He wrote the Chris Farley Show. This guy is Jim Downey.
Man.
You look him up, is an absolute legend. And he'd probably walk in the street right now and you wouldn't even know. It's crazy. This guy.
That's awesome. That Chippendale scene is amazing.
And he's so we've interviewed a lot of people. I'll say where they go wrong actually is more on like a scheduling thing. It's like when they only have 10 minutes or 12 minutes or
so they seem rushed and they're like a little out of their element.
We get them like,
something like that.
They're on set of a movie and we're in a little area next to that because they have to quickly come and do it. Or COVID was a crazy kind of thing, right? Where we had these things really affect your interviews. Where it's the greatest is if it's like a Saturday and you have to go to Albuquerque and Bob Odenkirk is doing Better Call Saul, but he's got the day off. That's what you want. That's the best, right? Where you're like, these couldn't go better. So it's not actually the person. It's the person in a situation they don't want to necessarily be in because they want to have an intimate conversation with you. It's like right now if I was on a fucking bus and we're trying to do this, Yeah. But I'm not. I'm here. I'm home. It's late and we can do it. It's great. And so that would be
awesome. Next time we have you on, you're going to be in the bus because that's going to be hilarious.
But it's
because then we want to like see what's going on there because that's
not a lot going on the Canadian bus right now. I don't think there's anything ever going on the Canadian bus.
Probably not. Well, you never know. I mean, I'm sure it could be a storytelling situation.
But
sure.
I'm trying to think of anyone who was like, I would love to give you some gossip stories. I don't think there is anyone. That's the thing. It's like, it's just situations.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's good.
It's just mainly situations. And then probably me now going like, what, that person canceled? Like, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, as like from one interviewer, not to say that we're professional interviewers, but with the podcast and things, interviewer who actually is doing this on a professional, it's like handle situations like that though. Like they're crunched for time. They slushed. Because it's with the documentary, even though like you don't hear that you ask in the interview, the questions that were asked to be genuine and detailed enough to get the story told from the individual that you were interviewing. So how, with time crunches and things like that, how do you handle those situations, and how do you prepare for your interviews?
Well, you prep, and then you have to let it all go because it could go a completely different way. You try to keep people on track. You just try to really listen. I think it's pretty similar to here. And the problem with listening is, like, if you think about listening, you're not listening. If you're like, I should be listening right now, like, you're not.
Yeah.
But I truly treat it like a sports game, and I get really prepped and visualized, and it's my favorite thing. It is like the only thing in my life. It's very meditative, and it's the only thing in my life where I can't have my phone on. You can't get a hold of me. It's just me and you, and regardless of how much time you give me, this is all I have right now, and there's no outside distractions. It's actually probably the most calming meditative state for me in my life.
Wow.
And that's changed as I've gotten busier, and we have more films. I'm on more flights and more fucking Zoom calls. It's just like the only time, we took a break through COVID. Obviously, everybody sort of slowed down during that time. And I remember coming back for the first interview. It was with Seth Meyers. And I remember sitting there just going, I love this. I love this so much. I love just, like, I get to talk to you right now and listen to you. And, like, if you go, you're going to tell me something, and I don't even really have an agenda. That being said, if you have 10 minutes, there are, like, certain story points you absolutely need to hit. That gets more and more of a time crunch as you get to the end of, like, the budget of a movie, where you're like, I only have 6 more interview dates left on a movie, and I need these 8 people to, like, tell us the story points. You kind of need it. And I think you can, like, see that we have an agenda, or we, like, need certain lines. But ultimately you just sort of know when you've got it too. Like, I try not to leave until I at least have elements of what I need. I'll give you a great example. Like, Sandler sat down for Farley, right? And, like, you kind of know that you should talk through these sketches. He's in these sketches together. He's also in Billy Madison, and Farley's bus driver. Fucking amazing. Mm-hmm. So, like, you should definitely get Billy Madison, but, like, what about Lunch Lady Land? Because that was pretty impressive. But, like, like, we didn't have it in the movie, because I remember Sandler kind of, like, moved pretty fast through Lunch Lady Land, where it's like, well, it was my song, and I brought it to the read through, and everyone liked it. And then like, Farley is hilarious, and he's in it, but he got Farley in it. But we don't really have Farley talking about his dance moves. We don't have, there's no other side to that story, where in Billy Madison, it's like, you could go further. You could talk to the writer, you could talk to the other actors, you could talk, and you see Sandler really light up when he's like, he came with these mutton chops, and, like, his face was turning red, and it's like, it's not, we didn't plan any of this. And you're like, okay, of all the things you guys have done together, we're going to go down that path now, because you sort of indicated that the other ones might not work. So you're sort of playing a little bit of game of a puzzle in your head while you're doing it. But ultimately, it also comes down to the edit later. And there's other factors, like, what if we couldn't license Billy Madison? Right? Like, there's other, like, what if it was too expensive? Like, there's other things that help the story sometimes. Or we would go, let's spend the money and license Billy Madison now, because it's clearly a major part of the story. Or, like, Coneheads, we didn't license. And Farley's in that. He's great. But, Aykroyd didn't say much about it, and Lorne Michaels didn't say much about it. So we just move on. It wasn't really his role, and he's not known for it, even though it's hilarious. So that's the sort of thing that I'm doing constantly when I'm thinking about these things. But honestly, I'm really just trying to listen.
It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it, though. Like, with Chris Farley, all the things that he was in, and just how memorable. If you're a fan, you remember it. But if you're going on in your life, things go on, and then you're having a conversation with somebody, and they bring up, oh, he was in Coneheads, and you're like, oh my God, yeah, you're right, he was. It's just like little things like that you forget, and you're like, wow, he did cameo in a lot. Well, that was more of a cameo. That was like an entire boyfriend role, but
he's a
little thing cameoed a lot.
I just love that he was the love. Yeah, he's the love interest with, like, a leather jacket on, and, like.
Yeah.
I love that we're talking about Farley right now, by the way, guys. I just love this. Like, people
that's awesome.
I was actually really concerned too, because I was all like, I want to touch on Chris Farley just because of how much of a fan I am of his work, but I know we got to focus on your stuff that's coming up. So I was like, I don't know. That's why I kind of brought it up earlier before we started recording.
No, this is awesome. I mean, here's the thing with when you do a movie too, and this is really hard. It's like when you do a documentary, you put a lot of love and life into these things. Like sometimes they take a lot of time. To plug this newest movie, The Holy Game, took us like 4 or 5 years to make this thing, and when it's done, you're like, okay, I gotta sort of like you kind of go through like a relationship with this thing, and you hate it and love it, and you get deep in this. And it's like with Farley, when it was over, I was like, that's it? Like, this can't be it. And we've done a special since. We did a special for biography because like they're like, you wouldn't want to do a Farley thing. I was like, no, I really want to. I will tell Chris Farley stories for the rest of my life. Like, I love this. I love every element of it. I saw Patrick Swayze documentary on TV the other day, and I was like, I'm just gonna watch this just to see if there's like they show the Chippendales part. Like,
they did.
They did,
probably.
And I was like,
did they?
And
they did,
I don't care as much about Patrick Swayze. I mean, he's a wonderful actor, but I just wanted to see where Farley gets added in, and I just love it.
They're up there in heaven. They're up there in heaven, Chippendale
That's it,
away.
exactly. And he's like, there's something, and maybe I'm missing something still. Maybe I still have more story to tell, or maybe I'll write a script one day and it'll have one of the Farley cousins or brothers in it or something. There's just something that it really affected my life and my career, and
That's awesome.
And so like, please bring it. I'll talk about him forever, and it brings it all back up. And I still post, like, I post about him, and I'll retweet anything I see. I just saw that Tom Arnold talked about his second or third wedding and how Chris was his best man on Howard Stern. Like, the stories just come up about this guy. He's going to stay alive because we do this, He's going to stay alive because we talk about it. So I love it.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well, you kind of mentioned their the projects and how you care and have a relationship with them, and it seems like you have a lot of passion when you take on a project. I noticed that a lot with Who Let the Dog. that documentary, like it supposedly was only really going to go so far, right? Like you hit Florida and then you're done. And you guys like uncovered quite a bit more to that, and you drove it all the way from Florida to across the seas and all around the world to back to Michigan. Can you give us just a little journey on that, I guess, because it seemed like you found a way to really go in depth on that story.
Yeah, I mean, that was so, back to what I was saying before of like, Chris Farley's like my Muhammad Ali. He's like my icon doc. And I like go through, I'm like, well, what does like a food doc look like? What does a sports doc look like? And I always said, like, with music, I was like, I'm not going to do like a Bruce Springsteen documentary. It's just not really my love and feel. Like, I'm not going to do that kind of movie. And then when Who Let the Dogs came up, I was like, that's my kind of music doc of like the most annoying song in the world that has 9 different people that claim they let the dogs out. And our mission in this film is to actually find out who let the dogs out. Like, it's so fucking stupid. And it's so great. And so when it came up, I was like, it's so funny that there's a question that gets asked in the song and we never have had an answer our whole life. Like, you've probably heard the term Who Let the Dogs Out like 10,000 times in your life without actually asking, I don't know who let them out. And there's so many places you can go and so many characters you can see. So we met this guy, Ben Sisto, and he does a live TED Talk about Who Let the Dogs Out around North America. And I was like, this is the guy. Like, this is I went and saw it in Boston. I sat and I was like, this is the movie. It's already done. He can walk us through the slides, almost like a spoof on Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth. Like, except we're not talking about climate change. We're talking about, like, it's just funny, right? This is the real life comedy doc element of this is real and this is stupid and this is hilarious and we have to explore. What I didn't know is that in the movie we would actually be telling a true story of copyright law, which, like, right? That I didn't.
It's like a very.
That's it. It's like like a way in. I did not know that. I was like, this is how did we get here? This is like we made people laugh and giggle, and then now you have to listen to like a real hard hitting film for a second. The uncovering part.
It got serious.
It gets serious quick, and you're like, wow, copyright law is crazy. Who creates art? Is recreating art illegal? Is it like like who owns a song? Just because you copyrighted, did you make it? Is a chant a song? You start to ask all these questions.
Oh,
right? You
yeah.
go further,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, you've hummed a tune before, and you're like, did I just make that up, or did and there's somebody singing a song? You're like, I was just singing that, wasn't I? Like, there's so many weird parts to music and like vibrations and everything, and so I just loved going down this one. I will say, I didn't fall in love with Who Let the Dogs Out as much as Farley. Like, as soon as that was over, I was like, this song's so fucking annoying. I'm done. I'm done with this one.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard it. I couldn't imagine the editing process.
You're just like,
or what, like, you know what I mean? Like, how much you
and
had to
everyone's like,
listen
did
to
you
it.
like this? I'm like, I didn't like the song before. I don't like the song while I'm doing it, and I don't like the song when it's done. Like, there's nothing where Farley's like, I could watch Farley on TV all day long. The uncovering part. So, you know, this film has 9 people that claim they wrote the song. We bring it all the way back to 1994. The Baha Men, by the way, who made all the money, they don't claim they said it, they did it at all. They're like, no, it's a Caribbean cover song. We just like made it hip, and they're like, good luck on the journey. Like, they're the best.
Nice.
They're like, no, please find out. We'd love to know. But we trace it back to 1994 and like the Miami boom music scene, and these 2 guys, like white rapper dudes, made it up, and they fully had like floppy disks and showed us. It's very fun. And then we somehow got a call, like out of the blue. Ben Sisto, who does the while we're filming, gets this call from a guy who said, it's a chant. It's from my high school in Dowagiac, Michigan. And we were like, let's go. We just went. Wow. And we just started uncovering footage. And like, it was this high school gym teacher found a tape in his garage. He's like, I bet this tape has the chant where we won the championship. And then we just started tracing it back to high schools and went further and further. We got back to 1986 in Austin, Texas, a high school. And like, it's in the film.
That's
like
awesome.
You're like, I need to see evidence. And that, by the way, has been like my threshold on this documentary, where if anyone comes up to me and says, actually 1980 in Mississippi, I'm like, just show me the footage. Just show me. You can show me an article. You can show me a dog mascot. You can show me a photo until I hear it or see it. And I think we've hit it, because before 1986, there wasn't a lot of digital cameras. People aren't really documenting like high school football games. So up to now, no one has actually been able to prove before 1986. But like, that's so awesome. What a weird movie. And the other thing about Austin was I really wanted to have a film at South by Southwest, and like, which is in Austin. So when we got to 1986, I was like, that's it, right? We can go to Texas now. Like, I was trying to tell them, like,
we won, right? We won.
Good.
We got
we
it.
should just go to that festival and air it. And
they're going to love it. They're going to love it.
And then we got the high school band during the premiere. I'll never forget this. They came out from like the stairs in a packed theater, and the high school band played Who Let the Dogs Out in the front with like the whole marching band from that high school.
Wow.
It was the best. That's such a fun movie.
That's so cool.
So, well, let's get into the reason that we have you on is this new documentary. So, myself and Scott, we're not. I don't know. When it comes to religion, we like to skate around it a lot.
Me too.
It's fascinating to find that you're now following football or in our term soccer team that has something to do with the Vatican. Can you explain it to us a little bit of what's going on here?
We finished a film, and this again, it goes back to the same kind of question of like, if Farley's an icon film for me, like, what's a music film look like? It's Who Let the Dogs Out. What does a sports film look like? Like, I don't think I'm gonna follow the Dallas Cowboys. Like, it's just not gonna happen. I'm gonna follow like some weird thing that's going on and like explore that sort of humanity in it and what that is. And I got told by a friend, Chris Kelly, that there's a league of priests beyond the Vatican walls that play an annual soccer tournament. And I like went to bed that night and I was like, that's the film. that's the movie.
Yeah,
like,
to me, that's like light bulb.
That's
All
awesome. All
awesome.
you need to do is get in behind those walls. You can do that, Chris, because you're like Catholic and your dad's a deacon, and you can get us in, I'm sure. And like we don't even have to meet anyone. We just have to like roll the cameras. And it was a completely self-funded film. This is the difference. Like, and like back to you, we all skirt around the subject because we should skirt around religion because it's kind of effed up and like there's a lot of shit going on and it's unexplainable, and every week something new comes out and it's hard. And I'm not Catholic. I didn't grow up that way. I think the whole thing's while. And Chris definitely gave me like a lot more perspective on some of the value systems within the church, which I was like, okay, cool. Well, it's good to hear. So I didn't know anything. I was like, why do they go to mass again?
Yeah.
What's happening? Why are they preaching this stuff? This is weird. But you know, people get a lot out of the church, a lot of good out of it. So I didn't want to like totally harp on it, but I did know that we had to hit some of those subjects. You can't talk about a priest who's becoming a priest in seminary school without saying, you do know the way that the world sees the church. We have to talk about like scandals and pedophilia. Like we have to ask you. So that was a journey. But it ultimately had this soccer tournament that led us through. And then we just met these really great individuals. And now the difference was, I assumed when I laid down and was like, I'm going to film the craziest thing when I get beyond those walls that night, when I was like, I have to do this. I thought they were going to be like old Friar Tuck, like potbelly type priests. And that, like, they're all like young, good looking GQ, like sexy priests. I was like, what the hell? Like, they're all like burly men. Like, one guy, I'm like, you know, when did you?
Like all three of
like,
us.
Just
yeah,
like
I know.
us.
Yeah.
And I was like, when did you get into soccer? And he's like, oh, I played NCAA, you know, hockey in Michigan. I was like, what? Shit, you guys are like real. Oh, wow. And I realized when they take their clerical off, they come have beers. They kind of look like us. You would never be able to tell that they're priests or they don't sit up a certain way or anything. They're pretty normal guys. So that was a sort of juxtaposition for me where I was like, all right, what is this? This is actually just a group of kids finishing their last year of college at seminary school. They don't know what they want to do with the rest of their life. And they're hanging on to like their friendships and playing soccer and doing all this. But the reality is their next step of life is the life of God. Where when I was graduating college, I was like, I can do whatever I want. And so that's where we related. And I was like, okay, there's some humans here. And then it became a soccer film. I thought it was going to be like 90% soccer. It became like 25% soccer. And it really became this journey of these guys. Look. And then twist. It's nice to have a twist in a movie. As we were filming it, one of the priests get kicked out of the priesthood. As we're filming, like, what the hell? So you're sitting there and you're like, what movie do I have right now? Like, this is crazy. And this is the one difference between, you know, we deliver a lot of docs for television and then docs for just documentaries. And like, you can't write this. You couldn't never open it up and go like, okay, on page 75, let's have that priest just like get kicked out. Like, you can't write it and you can't deliver that on like a TV schedule. You have to just go and film these and then, you know, sell them differently, sell them as an acquisition versus a commissioned piece. And so we really held and we were like, we are not done this movie until that priest that was kicked out reaches out to us and is ready to talk. And it took a long time. It took almost 2 years for him to do it. Yeah, it was over the pandemic that he finally was like, I want to introduce you to, like, he got kicked out because he has a secret wife and 2 kids. And he was like, I want to introduce you to my kids. I want to tell you what I've been up to. It's a wild film where.
That is awesome. That's like you have like a real reality TV show that's not scripted.
The real priests of Rome.
Because that's how reality TV is. It's scripted basically. So you had a real actual
that's it.
reality show. That's awesome.
And it's a little bit of a deeper story of like, soccer is an interesting game. The holy game is an interesting game of like, what game are you playing within the seminary system? Because none of it makes sense. Why the fuck would you want to be a priest right now? Yeah. What urges any of these guys? And that was like my main question I constantly asked. It was like they would answer and I'd go, right. Sorry, why do you want to be a priest? Oh, right. Wait, sorry, why? Like, and I kept, and we skirt the subject, everybody. And like, I don't think that's wrong to skirt the subject. I don't think that's like a wrong reaction. Like you kind of do and you should, and you're raised a certain way. And in this case, I was like, I don't have to, and I can't. I have to like hit this one over the head. So it was a journey. I don't think this is like a Farley either, where I'm going to be like, man, I really miss talking about religion. I think I'm like, I'll be done.
What was it? So was this kind of like their Rumspringer in a way? Like, do they have a decision between, like, because you're saying like it was their last year before they then become priests? Is it almost like they don't have to make the leap to be a priest at that little juncture, or like they can say, screw it, I'm going to go
only if they win, right?
Not be
only if they win the cup.
Is that how that works?
No. That's the twist. Yeah. Only if they get to win the Stanley Cup. No.
That's they automatically get in.
The Clericus Cup. Yeah. They get deaconited. There's a deaconiting ceremony at St.
Oh, I thought you made that.
No, it's real. Like they actually become deacons. And so there's a ceremony. Yeah, where I think they're studying theology, so they're truly going to college. Like they're actually studying it. Yeah, they got a theology degree. It's quite long though. It's like it's not just 3 or 4 years and you're in. It's like it feels like a doctor where you do like one and you do the other. And so a lot of them are already part of a parish, and they've worked within the church basically since altar boys, since they were like 13 upwards. So they're in their late 20s at this point, and they get asked to go to Rome. Rome is a really special. Not every priest gets to go to Rome. We didn't set that up that well. We just kind of were like priests in Rome. But the reality is like you're getting handpicked, from your parish to go and be in that school. And they're like, they get treated very well. The accommodations, it's quite nice. So a lot of people have to do that back at home, but I think you always have a choice. I think at any point you could be like, I don't want to be a priest anymore. I think there's just like you could if you were a doctor, but there is a graduation ceremony for sure. And I think after that is when you're actually in the spotlight. So when you become a priest, you truly then have to perform like a priest. Before that, they're like handing out pamphlets at the church and cleaning and helping. When you're after that schooling and you come back, you're wearing like the white cloak and you're delivering the Sunday service. Like it's next level. People are coming to you and saying, please, I need your advice. You're doing like it is truly the next level of being attached to God. So I think the pressure is on for sure.
You made a comment there with, trying to tell a story or getting certain points across, and especially with this, like you were going in and basically filming clerical football, or clergy football, and you discovered a new story, a different story. When you're filming things, or like a documentary like this or any of your previous ones, and you're getting the story, are you constantly reevaluating your work and seeing what story am I telling, and where is it going? Can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, 100%. I would say not as much on a commissioned piece. So if you get commissioned by Netflix or Hulu or anybody, they know what they're spending their money on. So like a pre-sell, they're not like, by the way, like really good execs in those companies are definitely in that. The ones I've dealt with at those companies are like, they're so open to something changing and they're very into it. And that's really exciting when they're like, that's great. The outline looks awesome. We've bought it. And we know life can change. Just try to deliver on time. Like there's that kind of life and element to it. But yeah, I mean, that is the sort of the constant pressure of a documentary, is that it is changing, and that you have to be okay with the idea that it will change. Some of the changes don't always help you. Like in this case, a priest getting kicked out of the priesthood while we're exploring a documentary about why you would want to be a priest couldn't have been better. But if we were really following the cup, and I'd sold this to ESPN and it was like a 90% film on the soccer, and you have that element, you're like, that's like an aside, it's like maybe a minute or two, not the amount of time we spend on it. So it is always changing. Farley's story didn't change though. Like we kind of knew Farley's story. We knew what we were getting into. We knew what we needed to hit, which was addiction and legendary status and these sketches. And we explore a little more as we learn new things, but that one stays. But some do really, really change, and some completely flip on their head. Like you might not get access to the right person, or like the FBI files are gone, or something like it. You're like, I have to tell this in a totally different way. But I don't know what's better. I'm trying to say like it's so much better if it's written out. It's not. It's like, some are just painful. Every sort of project has its pain points, but like some are much more painful when they're just sort of boring and laid out as well. So both have their pros and cons in terms of if they change or not on you.
Very cool. Do you have anything like on the back burner on your brain that you would love to do a story on, that maybe that you have maybe on your backboard behind us that we can't see, that you just want to do, that you maybe just, you just haven't found the right person to buy it yet, or that you would love to do, or the time isn't right? Or is there something like that you have like in the works in your brain, maybe?
Yeah, I should mention this board's fake. I just put it behind me to look like a
I know. Yeah, I know it's a fake screen. I can tell.
Yeah, it's just a green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, there's one film that, and I have to do it. I'll totally regret if I don't push this, but I would like. Why is there no Weird Al documentary? Like, Weird Al's perfect.
Very good.
Oh,
yeah.
And, like, I know he's reserved.
We've
definitely approached it. We like it. The Weird Al film cannot be anything but weird. It needs to be not a normal biopic. It needs to like have something where you're like, that's so Weird Al. Where Weird Al is so incredible to me is like he skews the line between music and comedy so well. Like in some eyes, he's looked at as a Grammy Award-winning musician, and in other people, he's looked at as a stand-up comedian. And he'll go on like Comedy Bang Bang, but then he'll also like, do a live show with the Foo Fighters. You're like, this guy has like embedded himself in this really weird wrinkle of pop culture and is somehow stuck around. Yeah. Also, if you look at his tour schedule, it's crazy. Weird Al like does these massive tours, massive stadiums, but they're not always in the big cities. He doesn't just like do Houston, New York, Chicago, and Toronto, and he's out. It's like he'll do like Kelowna, like Edmonton, like 7 places in the Midwest, and you're like, this guy's got it figured out. He has an audience. Yeah. This guy must be a multi-millionaire, and he has an audience. Like, he has met every celebrity he's ever wanted to. He has, like, he plays the accordion. He's this guy, and he also has this, like, interesting and fascinating life story. His parents died really early from carbon monoxide poisoning. Like, he's just wow. What fuel? I just have so many questions about Weird Al, and just this, like, the home run of the idea of weird and why he went there and how he's really stuck to something and it's so him. I don't know. Yeah. I just think that I would love to do that film. So he has an amazing brain for sure. Like how he's musically able to turn things into comedy and just be able to turn things and make it, pop culture. Just amazing. Yeah. I want to get in that brain. It's amazing. And also parodies essentially in culture are like usually making fun, but somehow he's turned it around into like paying tribute, and I don't know how he's done it. Like he's truly done it, from like every rapper to Nirvana to everything. Like if I dressed up as Nirvana right now and came on this podcast, you guys would be like, what are you doing? Like what did you think you were like, are you making fun of a guy who passed away, like brought people so much joy? Like it's just like he there's something so earnest with the way he did it. And I think there's like a generation, it's a bit of a Farley thing where I'm like, not everybody knows about this guy now because he's older and there's new generations of TikTok and YouTube. Like, you need to know about this guy. This guy has changed a lot of he's a little bit of the reason for why I do movies the way I do them. And so anyway, I think that that one would be huge. I would love to do that doc. There's a few docs that like never got greenlit that I'm always like, man, that story is nuts. And it just never came to fruition. But Weird Al's up there. That's number one. Well, that's awesome. That would be great. I can't wait to check that out. Exactly. Put it out here.
If you don't put it out in the universe, though, if you don't put it out in the universe, it may never happen. So if you're putting it out there, you never know. Like,
gonna happen.
You never know.
Greenlit.
I don't think it's that far
Some executive
away.
One day.
Yeah. You never know. Maybe he listens to this and he's in.
Oh, he will. Yeah, he does. He's an avid listener.
Yeah, he emails us constantly, right?
He does.
You'd be surprised though. Somebody would be like, "You'll do like you guys have done them. You'll just anything recorded is crazy." And someone will be like, "Oh, I think I saw you or heard you say that thing on." You're like, "Whoa, you listen to that? It's nuts."
Yeah,
I'd like to do a hockey project. Like the other side to me, like the non-comedy side, is like I grew up playing
the Canadian side.
I grew up playing junior hockey, and there's a lot of stories in hockey.
Most Canadian men. What are you talking
I'm
about?
the most Canadian. I know. I'm so Canadian.
Yeah.
The Montreal Canadiens lost last night, and that sucked. But I think that there would be.
Oh yeah, they did, huh? To Tampa Bay.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I'm an Oilers fan, but regardless, I just think that there's not that many hockey films out there, right? It's not that popular of a sport. Like it's.
Yeah.
I remember going into ESPN once for a meeting, and I was like pitching hockey stuff, and they're like, Brent, it goes football, college football, basketball, baseball, golf, 10 other sports, and then maybe like hockey's under that.
10 other sports?
Just kind of saying like, you're way down here if you want your hockey stories. And I was like,
I would think hockey's up there with.
Oh yeah, I mean it's.
Number 6, 5 or so.
It should be. Yeah. But like, pro wrestling's in front of that.
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, people they'll watch pro wrestling for hours.
Maybe try pitching it to like Russell Crowe or Wayne Gretzky.
Well, Keanu Reeves is a huge hockey fan too. That'd be fun.
Oh, really?
There you go. I heard the grapevine. He wanted to do a summit, like a whole doc series on the Summit series. And I was like, he was like looking for a director. I was like, dude, Keanu, let's jam. I would love to do something like that. So that's those are weird buckets though, because I have a hard time selling anything that's not a comedy. Going back to the film sales stuff, like if I bring in a really serious idea, a lot of execs kind of go like, that's not you though, and I'm like, well, no,
but you're the funny guy.
It is actually me, but you just don't know that part of me, and I understand. I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm pigeonholed in any way. I'm very happy to be a comedy guy and have people approach me that way. But if there is certain things that I'm like, yeah, that'll be a really interesting doc. This is a really cool article, and I can totally see this being a film. And it's like, yeah, but that's like not in your zone at all. Like that, and they're probably right. I'd probably get halfway through it and go like, well, this is depressing or something. So hockey, this is the thing with hockey is like every sport has like crazies. You look at like there's a Dennis Rodman or like a Michael Jordan. He's like even golf. You're like golf's so boring, and you're like, no, look what's going on with Tiger or like John Daly or like you're like, oh my god, there's not really like, can you name a hockey player that has like like married Madonna or like got caught in Vegas? There's not really like that many.
Oh, that's true.
They're pretty like solid kind of guys, a little bit boring on camera. So you're like, I can see why nobody really wants these kind of stories. There's no like quirk to it.
So that's what we have to do. We have to implant somebody.
That's it.
To be the bad boy of hockey. And then
we had that one here in Arizona that was always on the radio. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, we had. I think he was from Canada too.
It's not Max Domi. Not Max Domi, is it? Ty Domi's son?
No, he became. He's now like a coach or a commentator now of the Coyotes, or at least he was.
I'd be lying if I told you the Coyotes were my favorite team, guys.
No. Are they really? Oh, no. You didn't say that. Yeah.
Well, Gretzky's a big part of Arizona, obviously, or he was, but Gretzky's great, but he's like, solid guy, solid, dad, and not like you're like, where's the like there's a Last Dance on the Edmonton Oilers of the 80s. There should be. There's not, and you're like, anyway, I could go on about hockey for a while. Definitely something I want to do. Something in the hockey realm. I'll find a great story.
Since we're talking about like hot shots in the oddballs or the weirdos of the Rodmans, right, of hockey here, with this story you're telling of the Holy Game, did you find or did you notice anybody that was the next Beckham or had that aura of them?
So we followed the North American soccer team, which was a big mistake because North Americans aren't good at soccer. Like halfway through, we're like, and we gravitated towards them because over there's a lot of languages that get spoken. Like there's priests from all over the world, from like Africa comes over and Portugal and everything. And they play on these teams. It's a lot like Quidditch and like Harry Potter, where they're like the schools play each other. And there was the North American team. We like realized halfway through, like these guys aren't going to make the finals. We're not going to have a great film if they don't make the finals. And they didn't even make it past the semifinals. They got to the quarterfinals, and we sort of picked 6 other teams. We're like, let's follow these guys too because they've made the finals the last 6 to 8 years of this cup, and they're really good at soccer. Like Europeans are next level at soccer. there's 2 people in the tournament. One goalie played for a pro team in South Africa, and one of the guys played for the Irish pro team. And I don't know if they actually made it to the World Cup, but like, you know, went far in the World Champion Euro League.
Yeah.
So that was pretty exciting to see them play. You're like, oh, these guys are really good. And that was when they were probably 19, 20, and now they became priests. But overall, the soccer is like, it's okay. It wasn't next level soccer. We made it look better than what it was with like close-up cameras and like slow mo shots.
Right? That's the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. But like athletic dudes, really athletic dudes. Like I said, some of these guys are playing NCAA hockey, and you know, we're on the track team at Boston College. Like they've done a lot of sports in their life. So it wasn't like it was boring to watch, but soccer is tough. Like we did a basketball doc on Aubrey Plaza's rec league basketball team, which is so funny. It was a girls league that they're called the Pistol Shrimps in LA. Just the whole thing was such a funny sort of like anti-sports doc where you're like following this team. They do win the championship, but they're not great, and they know it, and they talk about how bad they are, and that's fun. When you film basketball, you're like going back and forth. There's 100 points a game. There's so much happening. It's a small court. It's indoor, and like you film soccer, and it's like stark daylight in the middle of fucking Rome. Like the sun sucks. They're like the players are like this big, and the game is like 1-0. You're like, okay, that was boring. Like that, we just not wasted, but like we rolled for like 3 hours of footage, and like we maybe have like 2 minutes of excitement. So that soccer's a hard game to do a documentary on for sure of all the sports.
Yeah, that's why it's unfortunate for us sometimes to watch it. That's why it's tough for. I don't know why Americans don't like it as much as we do, but
yeah, it's not like action packed. You know, there's like midfield like game going on when the ball is there, and then it gets moved toward. You're like, oh, we're just moving between these things, and we didn't really have access to the bench. You know, we didn't have like them mic'd on cameras. They were sort of reserved there. Yeah. The fans were crazy. We had that. So like it's a different kind of it was very immediate very quickly that we were doing a different kind of sports film here, and I was like, sports is going to take a side seat. I kind of knew after the first couple games, like there's no way unless we get drones in here and, you know, string cameras and build this whole thing out and get these guys wired mics on them, and it's going to be different. And it still worked out really well, but I'd say, you know, overall, yeah, I mean, it's like the soccer is. It's not I'm not rushing to do another soccer film in any way.
It's awesome.
Rugby, maybe, right?
Rugby, I would do.
Rugby. Oh, yeah, some tough dudes there. All right. Well, Brent, we're going to go ahead and wind down with our fun, fantastic questions we have.
Sure.
So, first question we have, what is your favorite conspiracy if you have one?
Whoa.
Do you have one that maybe is on the radar that you think that is a possibility, or maybe one that you think is true?
Whoa, favorite conspiracy.
Maybe it's true.
Or
that you want to think is true?
Like the subject of UFOs count? Does that count as like?
Sure. I mean, yeah, they're coming out these days saying that it's now legit. So,
I just love the back and forth.
You're pretty much on the right path.
Isn't it crazy, the back and forth on this thing? It's like the footage that you saw in the 50s. It's like, is this the same photos that we keep seeing? Or like Rosalind Lights and Dan Aykroyd?
Why are the cameras still always crappy?
Yeah, and like it's still the same. And I'm like, the Pentagon has spoke. I'm like, who from the Pentagon is talking about this? And so I think I would love to do a UFO project, whether I believe in them or not. It's like, that's a journey I would love to go on as in a film and be like, all right, who let the dogs out here? Like, you know what I mean? Who's really letting the dogs?
And that's what they listen to on a loop.
What is going on?
Once you get into the spaceship, I'm sure that's what they listen to.
That's exactly it. If I did a UFO doc, though, it can't be normal. It has to be like the Weird Al of the aliens or something. I have to find like a weird alien who started a bar or something. I don't know. But I do think there's like I haven't got. It's exhausting seeing all these articles on it, but I do think I would like to sort of explore that conspiracy at some point in my career and life.
Awesome. All right. What piece of information that you've learned that feels illegal to know?
Wow.
It could be Canada law.
Wow.
Roman Catholic law.
What a great question.
United States law.
Great. So, okay.
In your travels, what have you came across?
Okay. We filmed a documentary on the mayor of Fall River. And he is this kid who was indicted on a bunch of charges. And while he was indicted, he actually ran for mayor again and won. He's like the youngest mayor in the U.S. It's on Roku. It was on Quibi and it's on Roku. It's called Run This City. But he like let me follow him everywhere. And he's like on trial. And I like had footage of he was like going over the indictment and doing stuff. And I was always like, are you supposed to be doing this with me? And like, what a wild... I always felt like we had stuff that I was like, this is illegal that I have this. Like there was like I have information that a wiretap doesn't have. Like I always felt that there was stuff I didn't have. He was just found guilty on 21 charges of the 25. He hasn't been sentenced, but he gets sentenced in September.
Wow.
And he's no longer the mayor. But he is. Oh, and while we were shooting with him, he got arrested again on more charges. And like, yeah, just the whole thing was wild. That was the first time for me that I was like, I'm really filming in the moment. Like this is like in the moment. And that was 2019, like all through 2019, right before the pandemic.
So was he just doing like not to spoil the movie, but like was he just doing a whole bunch of crazy things he shouldn't have been doing, basically, in a sense?
So he became the mayor at age 23, youngest mayor in Massachusetts, I think second youngest in America. But he got caught on a bunch of, she got charged for like early stuff he did before he was mayor, like wire fraud with a tech company that he had. And then the second indictment that he got was bribery, extortion, tax fraud, and a bunch of other stuff that kind of came up while he was mayor. And he said taking bribes, and they have witnesses and everything. So he went through the system and he got.
So he wasn't playing the game right.
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing right and wrong. He's young, and I don't know. This was what was kind of crazy with following him. Is like, wasn't playing the game right, but I don't know if he was playing the game right when we were like, would you be? Maybe we shouldn't have been filming with you either. Like, there's all like. So back to your question of like, is there something I've uncovered that I feel like is illegal or shouldn't have? It was like there was something going on. I didn't even. When you're filming, you're like, this is gold. I know this is gold. In this case, I was always like, this is gold, and I don't even know if I want all this gold. Like, I don't know if I want this story.
Like, you almost felt like you're an accessory, almost, or should I be doing this kind of thing? Is that the kind of feeling you got?
Or like even Mark, back to your thing of like, what story are we telling? Like, what is this story? Like, is this the story of a triumphant young mayor who's going to beat the justice system and become the next president of the U.S., or is this like, are we just following somebody who's done some really bad thing? Like, I didn't know what we were doing anymore, and it was so. I don't know if that really answers your question, but in the context of filmmaking, I remember kind of having that feeling a lot of like, I like, and at one point we saw like an FBI car following us with them, and I was like, I don't want to. What is this? Like, this is too weird. And they were just like keeping track of him, and as they should, they have a case against him. And
wow,
yeah. And then we also like filmed in the FBI. In like the courtroom in Boston where the FBI made a statement. So like he's talking about this one FBI agent and that FBI agent's now in front of us doing a statement. And you're just like, this is all too crazy and real. And it was all happening in real time.
Surreal, right? Yeah.
It's very surreal. So that was like a very interesting film to make and sort of that question that you asked.
That's awesome.
That
and our
actually,
last...
That brings or makes me think of like while you're doing these documentaries, you get into a personal situation. The perfect example with that mayor, you then discover things that no one may know but you and him.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Wow,
really crazy.
That's got to be
right?
crazy.
You're spending like
How do you?
What are you saying?
How do you handle that? Like how like me, I got to tell my wife like, hey, this is what happened today. Like I went through all this drama of all these things. Like, is there someone that you confide into when like it's just bonkers off the wall?
first off, it's never just me. There's always a crew, so you're kind of going through the experience. Like my crew is like my best buds. Like my, like the guys I film with, and the gals I film with we all kind of, we'll all just start sending articles as they come out. Even now, we're like, what's going on with that trial? Like, even though we're done, so it is a collective experience, but it's an extremely odd relationship because, like, we're not friends. It's like a paid situation. I don't work for him and he doesn't work for me. So like there is no hierarchy of like a boss situation. He sort of needs to like be there weird. Really emotionally and intimately, but also has to be there physically, like a call sheet. It's like, I know you have trial on Monday, but like you were booked from like 5 till 8, right? For the interview. Like it's such a weird world where you sort of, and yeah, I mean, also you're like, I need to get great stuff, and great stuff comes at like midnight after you've had a few beers with the guy, and he's like, okay, let's talk about that now. And you're like you couldn't, it's like so different from doing shift work, you can't just be like, I'm on duty. And you're like, and by the way, getting that camera in front of him and him feeling comfortable took so long. Like there was times we didn't have a camera for a really long time, and there was times where I met up with him where I was like, I don't think the camera's right now. I just need to be here for a second and just listen. And then there's other times where I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. So it was a lot of that. And it was hard because like you're traveling to go do this with him. It's not like it's in New York and you're like, oh, I can just zip down the street. It's, you're going to Fall River every time. That one was a journey. Like that was a hard film to make. And his trial kept getting pushed too. It got pushed all the way until May of this year. So you're like, when are we putting it out? When the trial happens? And like, you shouldn't put it out before the trial. So I don't know if there's an answer to your question, Mark. I think it's just like every film's different. Farley didn't have any of that. He's not here. We didn't have to deal with like, it's just a different kind of game. So, that one though, man, that one was like, that took a lot out of me. That's another one that I'll fucking leave by. I'll talk about Farley forever. That one, I'm like, I'll leave that one. No, I still talk about that one actually. I still look at the articles as they come out and,
because it's still, you said it's still going on. That's
well, crazy. The other thing is too is like you meet really cool people when you do this. I met great people in Fall River that I stay in touch with. I had to go through Providence to Boston a couple weeks ago, and I stopped and said hi, and like had coffee with a couple of them. Some of these people aren't like in the film or on his team, or it's just somebody that we like met when we were at the bar one night. It's like you meet other individuals. It's really interesting. Where your life kind of takes you with some of those things. And I don't think you have to be best friends with your subjects either. Like, and it doesn't matter. People are like, well, do you think he's a criminal? Did he do it? You're like, doesn't matter. I'm not the justice system. Like, it doesn't actually matter. Right. Even though I was, very close to him a lot. My opinion in this situation means nothing. I can't even vote in that town. So who cares if he's the mayor? Like, so it's kind of interesting being a step back.
So true. And our last question will be, what kind of guilty pleasure do you have? Whether it be music or movies, like something that you watch that maybe is like something that people don't know that you listen to, like Taylor Swift. You're a T Swift guy.
I'd like to film.
What kind of things do you enjoy?
I'd love to interview Taylor Swift, by the way. Like film with her. I think she's fascinating. Same with the Jenners, by the way. I think they're fascinating.
Oh yeah, that would be a good one.
I listened to this podcast that was about her, and she's a machine. She's so fascinating. Guilty pleasure. I was just having a conversation with some friends about guilty pleasures and how, like, aren't they just pleasures? Aren't all pleasures guilty? Like, it was this where we went deep.
That's true. Deep. Yeah.
What are my guilty pleasures? And is it like secret? Like, I'm not like.
Yeah, like you haven't really told too many people. Like, you watch The Goonies on the third week of every month all day or something. I don't know. Yeah. That's what I do.
I'm a huge night owl. I don't know if it's not guilty pleasure. Everybody knows that about me. But like really weird night owls. Some people are like, when did you go to bed? And I say like 1:30. And I did, and I went till like 6 a.m. Like always, all the time. That's 4 a.m. all the time. I don't know why. I just do it, and I always lie. I always lie when I went to bed. It's like I'm gonna get in trouble, or people are gonna be like, "You are exhausted," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to hear that because it's not the point. The point is that I just like witching hour. I'm more comfortable." But No, that's not a good one. I really want to answer these questions because I think they're phenomenal. Let's see, a guilty pleasure. I wonder if I can relate it back to like, okay, I do have one that's kind of funny, and it does get brought up a lot because everyone always goes like, you become like the master of everything you do. If you like, I did the Farley film, like I'm supposed to know everything about Farley.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Airheads. He's in Airheads.
Oh.
And we even talk about it in our movie. We even talk about his scene, and I actually haven't seen it. And I always felt that was funny because people always bring up stuff, and you'll be like, yo, Billy Madison. You're like, yeah, I've seen it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. By the way, at the end of Billy Madison, the principal, that's Jim Downey. The guy who's like, that was the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. That's Jim Downey.
Oh, that's
like,
yeah.
The connection is
Really?
amazing that we're doing this film. That's a really stupid one, though, too. Like, guilty pleasure that I haven't seen Airheads is like, you're like, big fucking deal. Either have we.
That's pretty good, though.
But it's funny that I've gotten through some conversations where I'm like, oh, yeah, I've seen everything Farley's done. And it's not true. It's like I'm holding. Like I could go watch Airheads. He's in a scene. I could probably look it up on YouTube. But I've purposely stayed away from watching, and I have no reason why. Even though I know what happens in Airheads, and if people were like, I'm like, yeah, Brendan Fraser's in it, and like Steve Buscemi's in it, but I actually haven't seen it. I know they're at a radio station. I know there's like fake guns, but I actually haven't seen it. I haven't seen Farley's moments. That's so bad, but that's probably it.
That's
What's
good.
your
That's
guilty
good.
pleasures?
That's awesome. Ooh, Mark.
Nobody's asked you guys.
Right? Yeah, we don't. Yeah, that is very. It's not. I'm pretty open as to like all my stuff, so it. That is a very good question. I don't know if I have really like a guilty pleasure. Up until recently, which we've made known on the show now, it was crypto mining. Like that was a very well kept secret for our start of crypto mining until we wanted to start documenting our journey.
Whoa.
But yeah, then cheese. I am a huge fanatic of cheese, and I've been on a diet for the last 6 months, and I still
miss cheese.
Wow.
Yeah, I miss
it. Nice.
Wisconsin boy.
That is a guilty pleasure.
Real man.
Mine, I have a whole room designated to Sonny and Cher.
Whoa.
Shut the fuck.
No.
I was about to say, how big is
but
the
no,
room?
that's just it's a little closet. It's like
Shrine,
10 by 10. No, I can't really think of one either. It's more of just probably just like music that you probably don't want to share that you're listening to. Like something that comes on like, you know, your iPod or not your iPod, but your phone, like your music when it shuffles, you probably have crazy music that comes on like, and you're just singing along, and all of a sudden it's like Christmas music, and you're just still rolling through it like in July.
On the topic of music, thanks to Scott actually for this one. I think like I'm a closet Metalachi fan. Like it's mariachi music and metal to get mixed together. They do covers.
And they do cover bands. If you ever listen, it's hilarious. I mean, it's funny. They do
it's funny, but it's
Guns N' Roses,
really good too.
Yeah, Metalachi.
I recently think I figured out one of my dad's guilty pleasures, which I think is so funny. He's a really quiet guy. He's a very stoic guy. But we were at his place, and I was like watching TV with him. We started going through YouTube on Roku, like on the TV. And I was like, I think my dad loves American Idol, like underdog stories. And I was like, this is amazing. And I even looked, and I was like, look at your side history. It's all these American Idol, like, and like he started bringing up some, like, I think my fiance was talking to him, and somebody was talking, and he's like, yeah, Susan Boyle. Like, I was like, you know her name? Like, it was this, and I looked, and then we started going through it, and it was like, he was really into them, and he's like, oh no, watch, I've seen this one. This is where like the kid like hits a high note, and you're like, whoa, that little kid just hit that high note, and like British Got Talent and like New Zealand's Got Talent, like all like he was going deep, and I was like,
he loves the talent shows. That's hilarious.
That's so funny. You know what? I've watched every Blumhouse movie ever.
I don't even know.
You
What is
and
that?
my wife.
Blumhouse
I don't even know
is
what
a
that is.
company.
Is it-
We're going to be putting out a few docs coming up with them right away, which is super exciting. But they're a horror company, and they've done a lot of really great horror films, like the Halloween franchise that's been coming out, or Get Out, or Paranormal Activity.
Oh yeah.
But
okay.
then,
Seen those.
you know,
Okay.
to on the flip side of that, they've also done a lot of B grade stuff that like goes straight to iTunes. Nobody sees it. And if you go to Jason Blum from Blumhouse, you go to his Wikipedia page, and he has like 200, 300 movies. He's putting out every month. He's putting out more and more, and he does these like low budget, micro budget horror films,
Like gore films and stuff
all
like
sorts,
that.
yep,
Like
all
stuff
sorts,
like that?
and docs. Like
Everything?
in the
Oh, that's
doc
cool.
world, he did like the Jinx and some big stuff. But some of them are hit or miss, and I think that's what's actually quite beautiful about his business model. This guy's a salesman too. Like I really, really love Jason Blum. There's a podcast. He does Planet Money. If you ever want to check out like the sales of horror films, it's really well done. But I'm like, holy cow, you sell a lot of movies. Like you sell a ton. And some of them are hits, some of them are misses. And the ones that are hits are like hundreds of millions. The ones that are misses are like they're misses. But for some reason, I got so into it over the pandemic, and I watched every single Blumhouse. There's like 200 and something, and I would just be editing movies and just have them up. And I just was like, oh, I'll watch The Purge 7. Why not? And I'll watch and I just went deep, and I looked them up, and I would look up like how he financed them. And I love the sale. Like I said, I love sales of movies, and I'd be like, how did he finance these? How did he get this actor? Ethan Hawke's his friend from school. That's why he's in The Purge. What kind of deal did Ethan Hawke sign? Maybe did he sign a different deal? What did Jordan Peele sign? Who financed it? Okay, it was a Universal First Look deal. He has a Universal First Look deal. Universal Pass. He sold it to Sony. Like I started going down these weird. So anyway, people are like
sales
rabbit holes. But like why you picked every Blumhouse movie? That's a guilty pleasure. I have no idea why, but it's fascinating.
That is
a good one.
Your self-discovered guilty pleasure.
That's it. And I'm not a huge horror fan, so that's. Well, I guess I am now, but like I wouldn't say that I guess I have to be if I've watched that many horror films, but I wouldn't say I like gravitate towards watching horror films. It was just there was something about the structure of it too. Like he has a template that really works clearly, and I was just so fascinated.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's even watched all of his movies, and I actually met him. I've met him a few times, and I actually told him. I was like, I've watched every Blumhouse movie. I just want you to know. It was like all of them, like all of them.
And then you tell him, no, not Airheads.
Yeah, but yet not Airheads.
It's the only
you
one
did that one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Brent. Well, we greatly appreciate that you came on the show. We'll make sure that we tell everybody to go and check out The Holy Game. On that note, Amigos out.
This has been the Amigos PC. Make sure to like, subscribe, and review us on all your podcasting platforms. And visit us at amigospc.net. Get our entire library of content and Amigos merch. Till next time, adios.